Hello. Today we're going to talk about Imagen AI. To catch you up, if you didn't catch the technical earlier this week, Imagen AI is a cloud-based processing service that takes images and makes subtle, well, if your style is subtle, changes to the image. It starts off with a Lightroom catalog, and it takes 3,000 images that you have to have already edited and uploaded for it to learn your style. Now, what this means is it can give you back a Lightroom catalog of edited photographs. It's also working on doing culling, which maybe I'll do a video on that later on. But basically what it's doing is it's taking the images that you gave it, learning from those images, and going back and making modifications to this new set of images to match what it learned from your other images. This means it'll take you less time to edit your images. Now, I'll be honest, I use it for event photography, reenactments up at Fort Ticonderoga, and so far, I haven't really had to make much in the way of changes after the fact. I really like the way they're coming through, bearing in mind that I've given it 3,000 images and then some, and it learns from the edits that you make to the image after you've taken it back from them. So the process works this way. You import your photographs into Lightroom, take those images, and then send them up to Imagen AI. Imagen then processes those images and lets you know when they're done. And you get that catalog back, or that section of the catalog back. It then goes through and processes those images after you've made your edits. So you go into Lightroom, you edit it, and then when you're done, you go back into Imagen and you say, okay, my edits are done. And you send those edited images back up to Imagen so it can make the changes necessary to learn better how you do photography or how you retouch your photographs. Now we're talking about things here such as color and white and black, vibrance, saturation, contrast. I don't have enough photographs to know if it's going to handle the type of retouching I do to bring 3 dimensions into a bodybuilder's image, for example. But I do know that so far it's been doing a really good job on those events. So as a photographer, what does this mean for you? It means that you could at least get a starting point done very quickly, separate from presets. Now, I know that they're starting to use some AI-based processing in Lightroom, and that we'll start to see AI-based presets coming out as well. I don't know which of the two is going to be better. I do know that from a personal standpoint, in other words, the way you do things, the Imagen one is probably going to be better because it's based off of your style specifically and not based off of thousands upon thousands of other people's photographs that were then used to help with the preset. But we'll see. I could be wrong, and Adobe's been doing some really interesting things with their AI stuff. But in either case, it's going to mean that you have taken less time to get the photographs at least to a base state where you can go forward from there. And the reason I say a base state is if I were doing a wedding and I ran all my images through Imagen AI, most likely I would want to do extra retouching to the bride and groom portrait shots. Now, when I use Imagen AI, I've got things broken down into different categories. So I've got an events category, which I have well over 3,000 photographs that I've run through. But when it comes to portraits or the bodybuilding ones, I don't have enough for it to be able to process yet. You have to get it trained before it can process. And I just don't have all those images necessary for that yet. But it'll be a time saver. Now, from a client's perspective, the client, you're not going to know if your photographer is doing this kind of processing or not, honestly. They could be handing it off to somebody else to do anyway. So what you're coming down to for this type of technology is basically you're looking at the portfolio of the photographer and asking them questions about the type of retouching that they do. But you're going based off of what you see more than anything else. Right now, I don't see this taking over all of retouching. I don't have enough photographs in there to give you a definitive on that, but that's my feel. I think there's certain things that I do that it's not going to pick up. And I know that some of it's not going to pick up at all, even if I go back and forth. Now, what does that mean? You can start off in Lightroom and then go to Photoshop, which is where I go to make up the three-dimensional imaging shade changes that I do for my bodybuilding retouches. Those will go back to Lightroom, but they go back as a TIFF usually. So they're not a raw photograph anymore, and they're not a JPEG. So it kind of changes the way that they have to go into Imagen, because you can either have raw or not raw in your portfolio that goes up. And I'm not really sure if having those is going to carry over. I don't, like I said, have enough photographs for me to tell if that's actually going to work. And when I do get to that point, I'll make another podcast. But I do know that by putting these images up to Imagen, they'll at least get the Lightroom side of it, the color and the contrast. Now, the way it works is you train it. Then when you import your images into Lightroom, send that part of the catalog up to Imagen. Imagen processes it and sends it back. You load that back into Lightroom. It's a process that Imagen handles for you. Then you go through and make your final edits to the images, and then you send those changed images back to Imagen AI so it can learn from what you did above and beyond what it gave you. So that's how the process works. From a photography standpoint, it might be that you spend a little less time editing. For me, I average around 15 minutes for something as detailed as a bodybuilding photograph. Some portraits as well. So if I were doing 20 images, it would take me about 5 hours to do all the edits. If I give it to Imagen and Imagen were capable of doing all of the editing for me, it would probably get it all done for me in about 5 minutes. What I do with a client is the Canon camera has a companion application that I have on my tablet that allows me to pull images off of the camera. So if I wanted to show a client an image, I'm not restricted to that little screen on the back of the phone or on the back of the camera, or phone size for that matter. I can put it up on my larger tablet, my 10-inch tablet. I can make a couple of quick changes in Lightroom, also on the tablet, and then show some of the images to the client so they can get a feel for what it's going to look like. And the reason I say do a couple of quick retouches is I shoot RAW, and RAW usually requires changes to contrast and things because it makes the images a little bit flat coming out of RAW. And there's a base set of retouches that I do that I've actually got a couple of presets made for that'll allow me to do a quick, this is what it's going to look like, so it doesn't look as washed out as it normally would. So as a photographer, it saves you time. As a client of a photographer, it might mean that because it's taking less time, maybe the rate will be different. Maybe it'll mean you get your photographs back faster than would normally happen. Again, this doesn't seem to be anything that's going to cause any concern on either side if they were done this way, because it is the style of the photographer. And unlike a preset, it's more personalized than the presets currently are. So that's what I've got for you this week. I hope you got some information out of here. I hope you're doing well and not under a cloud of smoke coming from the Canadian wildfires. And I will talk to you guys all next week.